What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Eddie Hearn. Jarrell Miller, get this. Jarrell Miller threatened Eddie Hearn in a heated private exchange. He said, "I know what you did." And he said, quote, Hearn says that Miller threatened to pull up on him in New York. He said, quote, "He came up to me and went, 'Oh, you scared now?' on stage." And I went, "I ain't fucking scared of you." I said, "I know what you did." And he went, "Why didn't you back me like you backed Conor Ben?" And I said, "Because I don't believe you." And he said, "Next time when you're in New York, I'll pull up on you, or I'll have someone pull up on you." And I said, "Go fuck yourself." And that was it. Wow. The promoter went on to say that he felt Joshua, who didn't bring up Miller's doping test during the heated exchange, went easy on him. And he said, "Listen, I don't mind Jarrell Miller, but I think AJ was very lenient on him, because what I would have said was, you had your chance and we all know what you did to try and gain an advantage to beat me. So bye-bye." Finally, he's not ruling out a fight in the future. He said if he wins and somehow the public are desperate for the fight, who knows in the future? It's up to AJ. Those are the words of Eddie Hearn. And let me counterpunch. Wow. Jarrell Miller threatened to roll up on Eddie Hearn or get someone to roll up on him. Now, if you guys don't know what that means, roll up on means drive by, get out, beat up, stab, mostly drive by. That's the first thing I think of. I'm get somebody to roll up on you. You know, it's either some type of physical altercation is going to take place, people. Okay? And Jarrell Miller, you know, I remember seeing Jarrell Miller talk to Eddie Hearn. And I wondered, like, what the hell is he talking to Eddie Hearn about? Because, I mean, he was in Eddie Hearn's face, all up in his shit when that happened. And I wondered, like, okay, what's going on with that? And I did wonder, because it was a lot went on. You know, AJ flipped off Jarrell Miller. And then I think that was like after that, Jarrell Miller went to Eddie Hearn, and I guess this is the conversation that they had. I'm glad that I heard something. And, you know, that sounded about right. Because, you know, Eddie Hearn trying to keep cool, calm, collective, being the promoter, you know, with the suave style that he has. And then you got big, brash, Brooklynite Jarrell Miller in there like, yeah, what? Get somebody to roll up on you. Why didn't you support me like you did Conor Ben? You know, and me counterpunching the whole story about Conor Ben and Jarrell Miller and Dillian Whyte. Because understand, all that happened around the same time. Jarrell Miller tested positive like around, what, April, May? And everything went belly up for him. Then they brought in Andy Ruiz. The rest is history. 2 months later, okay, wait, a month and a half later, then Dillian Whyte had that episode, that issue with Oscar Rivas, all in 2019. Okay. Then a couple years later, 3 years later, actually, 19 to 22, you know, then you had the Conor Ben situation where Conor Ben tested positive for something. And then, you know, you had Eddie Hearn go out on a ledge for him. And I'm going to tell you the difference between Conor Ben and Jarrell Miller. The difference between Conor Ben is boxing heir royalty. He's residual. He's second generation, for one. For two, he is signed with Matchroom. Jarrell Miller was not. Jarrell Miller was with Deletri Salida and Serafina. Okay, those guys were promoting Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller just happened to be brash and bad enough and more exciting enough and curious enough to sell a fight between himself and Matchroom's own Anthony Joshua, promoted by Eddie Hearn. So it wasn't any vested interest for Eddie Hearn to really go all out on the bat for Jarrell Miller, because, see, Jarrell Miller had already earned the term or the title, the bad guy. But when you are the bad guy, in reality, you already, you know, people look at you as the bad guy, then they see you do some foul shit like that. And then it was the way, you know, we found out that it was a substance in Conor Ben's doping test, but then it was the same one. But then, you know, the time that they knew about it versus the time that they told everybody wasn't up to everybody's standards. Jarrell Miller had 3 different drugs in his system at one time. You know what I mean? Luckily, they, you know, pretty much all those ran concurrent with each other because it was the same drug test. You know, so, you know, you can't help but to realize can't help but to realize that maybe Jarrell Miller did something malicious going on. Like, you know, even his coach came out and said, hey, I knew what Jarrell was doing and I told him to stop. That type of shit. So Jarrell Miller was dead wrong. He was busted cold turkey. And somebody had to be the fall man. Well, you have to be held accountable for the things that you do. And that's exactly what happened in the next year. It didn't make him any much better simply because he got popped again with EPO. He said, well, you know, he said some shot was in his elbow and something like that. But then he had the 2 other ones. Okay, what's the HGH and the GWH 15, 16 shit come from? You know, like, see, it was just too many things that he could not explain. And then you want to blame Eddie Hearn for it. How are you going to get mad at Eddie Hearn for not supporting you? You were the one that had that shit. That I know he's angry and I know he's bitter and he sees other similar situations go down like Connor Ben and Dillian White and then Dillian White. Then see Dillian White now, you don't hear from him at all. Where the hell is he? You know, Jarrell Miller just stuck it in there and stayed wherever the hell he could stay. You know, he was doing security for Mayweather for a while, right? So a lot of things that he went through. He went through a divorce. He lost his family. You know, a lot of things happened to Jarrell Miller that he doesn't really talk about all the time. You know, so, you know, his resilience is, hey, you know, staying upbeat or whatever, because he could very well be like Buster Douglas or Shannon the Cannon, because a lot of those guys, and Tyson Fury, a lot of those guys suffer from mental illness and, you know, and anxiety, you know, and emotional breakdowns after that. You imagine thinking you're going to make $6 or $7 million, but you're doping, so you lose it all and you lose your wife and your children and every fucking thing else. You know, so it's crazy. But him talking about rolling up on Eddie Hearn, that's just totally uncalled for, unreasonable. All of that stuff. That is exactly what, like, you're pissed at him. But I think you're pissed at Eddie Hearn simply because, you know, you haven't seen Eddie Hearn probably in about 3 years. And understand that 3rd year, this was right before he tested positive for another drug test. And seeing when you're dealing with a co-promoter that's not really your promoter, he's just helping promote a particular card and you're on it. And they see you do something again, they're going to burn you at the stake and you're giving them fuel. You know what I mean? For that fire. That's all Jarrell Miller did by getting popped in 2020. He put himself right back in the same situation that he was in 2019. So you can't really blame Eddie Hearn from acting the way he did. However, the irony of that is what people should understand, that a lot of these fighters cheat. And what's the word? Damn it. Respecter of person, right? Respecter of person shouldn't really be respected because they're both doing the same shit. But Jarrell Miller, you know, he's the bitch of the bunch. If you had someone cheating in the last 5 years, yeah, he would probably be on that particular sign. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Eddie Hearn stating that Jarrell Miller secretly cornered him and threatened to roll up on him in New York City. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!